Thank you, everybody. The original schedule said Hamish Watson was going to be speaking here today. Hamish is our CEO. As you might hear from my accent, my name isn't Hamish and it isn't Watson. My name is Roy Smithies. I'm the proposals manager for Polysolar. We have recently won the tenders for the Sudbury and Stowmarket leisure centres, carport solar projects. Just a little bit about Polysolar before we get on to the feedback of where we are at the moment. One of the things is we believe that every building can become a source of renewable energy. We don't have to go to only rooftop. We don't only have to look at, so this is jumping ahead, yeah, I'm not sure why. We don't only have to look at rooftop solar or ground solar. We can look at the building and the building facades, etc. There we go, back to where we are. And we are doing this by using transparent PV. The projects that we're busy with at the moment is not using transparent PV, but this is just a little bit of background on the company itself. We're using it as, and what we call it is building integrated photovoltaics. We use building facades, replacing windows, etc., with the PV. Some of the companies we worked with, I'm not going to go into any detail of those at the moment, but there's a large variety of companies that we worked with at the moment. As you can see, the local councils that we're working with for Biber and Mid-Suffolk are right there in the middle. That is the project which we're talking about today. Another project which is not in the case studies going forward is Shell. Shell has commissioned us to do transparent PV for their very first EV-only charging station in the country. So they will not be selling petrol, they will not be selling diesel. It is only solar that they'll be doing, and we're doing that for them. We've done projects for Sainsbury's where we're doing their petrol station roofs, swimming pools. Canary Wharf, we had one of the very first transparent bus shelters generating power in the country. The last one there for the Sandwell Council, we did a market stall at West Bromwich. And again, this thing is jumping ahead without me pressing any buttons. I'm not going to talk much about this slide. The councillors on their introductions this morning have indicated why there is an importance to go ahead with solar. Just one thing to point out on the slide, bottom right-hand corner, battery costs have dropped nearly 1,000% since 2010. Which is important because we're using technology to provide power, not fossil fuels. Our product range, we are looking at monocrystalline silicon, which is a traditional silicon which you use in solar panels, but we embed that in glass. We move those silicon wafers in and out to give an opaque, a light transmission through the solar panels, and we use that in carports and canopies. And I'm going to press the back button. We use cadmium telluride to provide transparent thin film solar glass that can be made into single glazing or double glazing. And we use traditional monocrystalline silicon as well. The applications of our solar is we're looking at solar canopies. There we can, any shape, any size, we're looking at for domestic and commercial use. Solar EV carports, we've done several solar EV carports throughout the country, with it being either traditional solar or transparent solar, and then solar building facades. As I mentioned earlier, the cadmium telluride transparent solar that we produce. We can use in a building facade. It is designed to work horizontal. It doesn't have to face the sun. So we can use that in building facades. Some of the case studies, again, just to show you the breadth of what we do and then how that would fit into what we're looking at for the council. We've done a transport hub at Bournemouth University. There we go. We've got bus shelters, people using the bus shelter as functional street furniture as well as generating electricity. West Bromwich market stalls. We've got about 34 market stalls where we replaced the canopies that the guys were using with a solar canopy. Another big job we've done was the Cambridge North station, where we covered the cycle shelter. Bristol and Bath at the Science Park, we did EV charging with our transparent solar solutions. And in the domestic range, we have got a range of transparent or semi-transparent solar carports, which can be used in the domestic environment. And then lastly, in the domestic environment, we've got canopies. These garden canopies can be freestanding, set up against the side of the building, etc. Okay, now to get to the reason why we're all here, we're putting in the solar carports at Sudbury and Stowmarket leisure centres. That is a graphical representation of what we will be putting in at those two sites. Kingfisher Leisure Centre, you guys probably know from being from close by, this is where we're doing it. The bottom, sort of the south car park of the leisure centre will be have a whole lot of solar carports, reutilizing the existing space that is owned by the leisure centre. We don't have to go out and put it in green fields. There is a separate contract of people already doing PV on the roof, but if you run out of space on the roof and you need more power, carports is an ideal way of actually utilizing your existing space. We're doing it at the Mid-Suffolk Leisure Centre as well. There we're doing the north side of the building, doing a whole lot of carports there. One of the main uses of the power is EV charging. At those two leisure centres, to date, there's only a dual car charger at the Sudbury, at the Kingfisher Leisure Centre. After we finish the project, we will have 10 EV charging points. We'll be repurposing the existing EV chargers for accessible bays, and we'll be adding 8 additional. At the Stowmarket site, we'll be putting in 10 EV charging points, 2 of which will be for the accessible bays. Okay, how much power are we going to be generating? We've been contracted to provide 104 kilowatt peak at Sudbury and 195 kilowatt peak at Stowmarket. Technology evolves quite fast. We originally planned to do about 105, 106 kilowatts at Sudbury, but we can't get those panels anymore. We're now getting higher power panels. We're going to be doing about 109 kilowatts and about 198 kilowatts at Stowmarket. There it shows the average kilowatt hours per year that we're looking at for the two sites, 87,000 and 178,000. The interesting fact there is just about 31 tons of CO2 per annum Sudbury and 63 tons at Stowmarket. And the question comes in, I mean, what does that actually equate to? Is that a lot? Is that a little? There I found a photograph of what is a representation of 1 ton of CO2. Now, that's a fair amount of space that we're looking at. Now, for Sudbury, per annum, we are saving 31 tons, and so Stowmarket 63 tons. And the energy that we're generating, also just to put it in perspective, it's the same power as 24 homes in Sudbury and an average of 52 homes in Stowmarket. That is what we'll be generating per annum. If we equate that to a small, very efficient car, not an electric vehicle, we could be doing 660,000 kilometers of travel. And that's the energy produced by putting solar on the 2 carports that we are looking at. I'm going to talk a little bit longer about this slide. What we are doing is we are putting solar on the carports. We are erecting the carports, which are specifically designed to take the solar. We are inverting that into mains electricity, and we are feeding that into the local distribution network on the site. A fair amount of that power will end up going into battery storage if it's not being used immediately. The power will also be used for the EV charging. Oh, I've spoiled the ending there by this machine, which is jumping ahead by itself. If there is excess power being generated, we could push that back into the national grid or used into the leisure centre. Having battery storage, EV chargers, and solar on your site is fairly restrictive if you're not managing it correctly. What we need to do in a case like this is measure how much is coming from the sun, measure how full the batteries are, measure how much power is going out to the EV chargers, measure how much is going into the leisure centre, and understand what are your limitations and your energy costs from the national grid. So what we do is we throw all of that into a pot, come up with the algorithms to say, it is best to charge your batteries at 4 o'clock in the morning and use that power on the EV chargers during the day. Or there's a weather forecast saying we're not going to get as much solar tomorrow as what we expected. Where do we get the power? Where do we store the power? Where do we most efficiently use the power on the site? What we could do is, if we had a step tariff on the power coming in from the national grid, we could say at certain times of the day, if we used more than X amount of power, it would be beneficial to take the battery power that we stored and push it back into the grid, limiting your power consumption on the site. So a lot of effort and energy has been put into managing the power on the site, not only generating it. A lot of questions that have come up from the talks yesterday is when will we be finished? And we'll be contracted to finish at the end of March, and we are currently on schedule to probably finish at the end of March. A couple of milestones coming up. We have placed the order for all of the manufacturing of all of the carports, so they're busy being manufactured at the moment. We're busy with detailed design on the electrical layouts. We've more or less got that finalized, more or less finalized what's going to be happening with the battery storage and things like that. We have got guys on site in probably 2 to 3 weeks, testing the ground conditions at the exact points where the foundations will be for the carports. So the project is underway, it is on track, and it's going to have significant savings for the local communities. If there are any questions, I'll be more than willing to answer them. I will be at the stand for the rest of the day. So if there are any questions on this particular project, on any of the case studies we've done, I briefly showed you, you're more than welcome to ask me. Thank you.